Well, hello everyone. I'm very excited to be back with another conversation. It's a pretty special one with a pretty special person. I would like to introduce my sister, Rachael Jayne Groover, who is the CEO of the Awakened School, which offers transformational experiences for those seeking inner peace and outer purpose. And before you say anything, Rach, I just want to say that I've done multiple sorts of different trainings with Rach, and over, gosh, so many years, I can't remember. And they have totally transformed my life, the work that you've done with me and Dada, your husband has done. And I've just come back from a trip there in Colorado with Rach and Dada, and have been injected with all the great juice from over there, all the good stuff. And back here in Australia, and really excited to have a conversation with you about your new book. But anyway, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited for this. This is the first time we've done this.
I know. I was saying I'm a little bit nervous, but it's fantastic. So I'm going to hold up the book, everyone. Unshakeable Inner Peace: Get Off the Mental and Emotional Rollercoaster for Good. This is not your first book, Rach. What number?
Third book.
Third book. And we're going to be talking about this today. It's the extremely important topic for everyone, but particularly for myself as an artist and for the artists that I work with. This is a real key to the puzzle of making exceptional work and getting exceptional opportunities for your work. And just before we get into it, you can get a free ebook until the end of February. And that is not through Amazon or those channels. It's directly through Rach. So I'm going to have the link in the comments, in the caption, wherever you're seeing this. So please grab a free copy. So Rachael Jayne Groover, how did this book come about? Like, what was the writing process like for you? Can you describe it for us?
Yeah, it was very much like your fresh eyes experience that you just had. Like, if you're watching this later, when did you do fresh eyes? Like end of January, start of Feb, something like that. I wrote my first book, Powerful and Feminine is what it was called, through a normal way of writing, like, structuring it. What do I want to put into it, and the chapters, and kind of very left brain, even though there was a lot of things that I knew I wanted to say. Took me 5 years to write it, right? It was pulling teeth, because I would start it and then I would put it off to the shelf, and then the next year I'd pick it up and I'm like, I'm so different. I don't even want to write that book. I want to write something else. So I went through that process, but for the second book, right before the second book, which is called Divine Breadcrumbs, I met Tom, who's a good friend of ours, Tom Bird. And he was like, you got to get out of your head, Rachael Jayne. Like you're thinking too strategically, too fast, which, as an artist myself and writer and all of that, like, I got what he was saying. You have to really be in that right brain and that divine connection and that receptivity first. And I just hadn't really thought about it as far as writing an entire book. So I did that way more receptive with Divine Breadcrumbs. And then this book, I went to a writing retreat. I was in Hawaii, made the decision. It was going to be fully downloaded, like fresh eyes experience. And for those that didn't do fresh eyes, you should have done it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
With Amy Jack, as we call her, Amy Jacqueline Kennedy. Amy Jack is what we call my sister. And yeah, it's really asking a question, or, having very open mind and being in the moment and writing as fast as you can without the thinking. And writing fast was really a key to this book. So I couldn't get in my head too much and stop the flow and stop the process. So I was in Hawaii at the time. I decided 4.5 days, that would be the time to write the first draft of the book. And I thought it was going to be about something else than it was, which, I mean, you're all artists. You know what that's like. You think you sit down to do something and it becomes something usually way, way better than you thought it would become. And so, I'm not giving away too much of the story, because it really is a story of unfolding. I sat down to write it, and as I sat down and started asking questions just of this, what I call my divine partner or intuition. I was writing and a voice came through that was way more precise and different than my usual intuitive thinking mind, when you get a hit or something. And it said, I asked it, I said, what's this book about? And it said, this book will be the answer to your most important question that you have right now. And that kind of made sense to me at the time, because like with Fresh Eyes, it's about the power of the questions that you ask. If you're asking crappy questions, you're going to get crappy answers, right? Like, why am I so overwhelmed by this? Well, you're going to get a crappy answer. Or, am I worthy of doing this? You're going to get a crappy answer. So I thought about it for a moment, and my most important question at that time, to put it in context, this was May of 2018. I wrote, is it possible for me to reach enlightenment in this lifetime? And for people who don't know the context of what I do so much, I've been on a spiritual and personal development path for a long, long time. Like, we're talking 25 years easily, very dedicated to this. And so I've been through quite a journey already, but I knew that even though I had a very amazing life and a lot of peace, there was still something that really hadn't dropped in. There was still, the mind would chatter and the unworthiness would kick in and the comparing myself to other people. Like, I knew that that was still there. And I knew that no matter how much I improved myself, this unshakable inner peace was going to come from more of a spiritual awakening than just trying to improve my mindset. So I'd been with that question for a few months. I wrote that down. Is it possible for me to reach enlightenment this lifetime? And this voice started answering. And it's the conversation that I had that blew my mind around the traps that I was still falling in, even though I was teaching all this stuff for so long. The traps I was falling in that wasn't allowing my mind and my body and my emotions to remain peaceful no matter what was happening. And I think that that is so important for every human, but for artists particularly, it is so important to really get off that mental and emotional roller coaster if you want to have great work and great opportunities, but have fun in the process versus always be so, up and down and in and out and all of that. And I know that world, and I think artists tend to be, maybe you could tell me if you think this, because you work with more artists now than we do, tend to be very sensitive to other people, sensitive to the environment, sensitive in their own emotional world. That allows them to take in information, like other people might say, this is not good or this is not, and they take it on for a long time, and that can stop them. I don't know. I mean, you read it. Well, how do you think it would relate to artists?
Oh, totally. I mean, it's you're right. Everyone is going through these things, but I think artists, they're creating, and like you and your husband Dada are artists, writers, musicians, singer-songwriters, interior designers, stylists, and everything. So Rach and Dada know this world well. But you're creating something, and there's so much like going out on your edge and vulnerability with that, and just even working out the technical stuff and the skills and everything. And then they have to move into, oh, now I have to put on like my business sort of hat in a way, and my professional hat, and talk to people about it or write about it
Exactly.
or put a price on it. And it's just, it's so complex, because you're moving from one way of thinking, it seems like in the flow, in that of that happening, and then it can get like this, it can get all like tight when you're moving to the other area. And
Totally.
and I think the challenge is that there's creativity and opportunity for flow in both areas, like the creating of the work and that getting it out there. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I can relate to when I'm in my work that I just love, which might be the writing. I love writing, but even our retreats, our workshops and retreats feel very artistic to us. We play music, we're setting a scene. We just built Casa Sagrada, which is our retreat space. And it's all about the experience, which is what artists love. They want to not just create something, they want to give people an experience of the work. And so when I'm in the flow of that, I say, and I don't know how many of you say, if you're watching, you can answer it yourself, is if only I could just stay in this place my whole 40 hours a week or whatever. Like if only I just could write. And Dada's the same. If only he could just, do photography and write. But as artists who want to actually make money or get into galleries or exhibitions or grants or whatever, we do have to make that leap into doing things and stepping out of our comfort zone, which I had to. And I mean, we have a strong, big business, people fly in from all over the world, all of that's there, but that was not my beginning. My beginning was too like yours when I was saying, Amy, you need to learn this stuff. Like I just got a few years before, but I remember asking for my first music gig that I had to ask for because my guitarist wasn't going to do. And I remember having a cup on and a saucer. Did you ever hear me tell this story? But it was the
I think
first, it was
so.
down in Greensboro, the borough, down in Greensboro. It was one of the coffee shops, like so low key. This was not like going into, anywhere in Melbourne asking for a gig. It was the Greensboro coffee shop. And I had a saucer underneath my cup and it was like clanging as I was asking for a gig for like $50 for both of us, like 25 each. So I know what it's like to come from that place and then have to force yourself into discomfort. And that's part of why I really got on the personal development, human potential, spiritual development realm, is because I was like, I want to be successful. I really want to make an impact in the world. And I do not want this stress and overwhelm and freak out and internal a lot of comparison I had a lot of comparison stuff where I would never fully meet up with other people that I really wanted. Like I would never get there, but also I would flip on a dime. And so I went from, I'm not as good as them to I'm better than most people, why am I not getting, and it was this inferior, superior flip that
Yes.
really drove me. And I couldn't just really be present outside of my comfort zone. I was present inside of my comfort zone, but I wasn't really
Mm.
present and effective outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah. And so seems to me is our wonderful mind is sort of which gets us into problems, with going into the future about, they're gonna judge me, it's not going to be any good, or going into the past, well, I've been rejected so many times. So, you write a lot about this in the book. What do you think of the mind and its positive and negative? Do you see it as positive and negative? How do you see the mind?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the mind with the body, because now, I mean, all the science and data shows we cannot talk about the mind separate to the body and the body separate to the mind, right? If the body's feeling something, it's going to send a signal to the brain and the mind is going to just start going on a loop, right? Or the mind could start and the body's going to freak out. So I call it kind of the body mind or the earth suit, right? You've heard me talk about that. It's like the earth suit is not who I am, because I'm aware of the earth suit. I'm aware of my mind. I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of my emotions. I'm commenting on these things. So it mustn't be what I am. And I'm even aware of what's commenting on these things, the inner observer. So the earth suit is great because it helps me to create things and it helps me to strategize and it helps me to communicate. It helps me to have boundaries and think through things. but it's a highly conditioned process, a psychological process, and then physical process, meaning I grew up, and this is what you read early on in the book, is I grew up in Australia. So if you're wondering why Amy and I sound a tiny bit different, I don't know if we even sound different. Do we sound different? Or
Yeah.
actually, Amy's been with us for 7 weeks over in the US. So maybe I'm sounding a bit more Australian, because I usually do sound a little more Australian. Like instead of hello, it's like hello.
Hello.
I've been practicing my hello. But I've been living in the US for now 21, 22 years. Been a while. But growing up in Australia, it was the conditioning of play down your talents, play down your accomplishments, be modest, don't brag. Right? Any
Yeah.
Australians agree with us? Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So it's very much that. So the mind, when the book started, and I'm now writing about spiritual awakening and enlightenment, and I'm apparently able to be that in this lifetime, it was like, no freaking way are you allowed to talk about this, because other people will read it, other people will judge you and say, who do you think you are to be talking about that? So all this conditioning of younger life starts coming back, and that's what the mind is doing, right? And so we have to condition the mind for better thinking, and we can do that. But whenever we're in stress and we believe we're the mind, we're going to go, I'm scared of. So I'm believing the mind when things were coming through of who do you think you are, and you're not worthy to write this book and all of that. And that was what a lot of spiritual teachers will say, you're identifying with the ego, you're identifying with the mind. And that's what was happening. So it's not a bad thing. I love the mind, but it's thinking I am it. And we talked a lot about this while you're here. Like it's hard to not be sitting on the couch while your mind's going and saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm judging myself, or I'm not good enough. It's that that we jump so quickly thinking that's who I am. And that's not who you are. And the spiritual awakening process is realizing that, fully realizing that the mind is not you. And you can feel into that with this question. Imagine that anytime your mind said something negative or something weird or something critical, you're like, isn't that so interesting? Because it's such a highly conditioned process. It's not even me. That was your response versus I'm thinking this, or I'm overwhelmed, or that's what has changed in my life since writing the book, which was really for me, because I was so still in that world pre-2018, no matter how much workshops I had done, it was still in that. And it was through, pulling back and seeing it for what it is, and having some tools that are in the book to work with, to let go of that mind control in a way.
Yeah. I mean, when I was over there, I was, I was having a few overwhelm moments, people, because I was totally hooked in. Like there was no gap. There was no sort of air between like the thoughts coming through. And so I was just like, oh my, this is me. And so what do you recommend for people who have maybe never questioned that they are not their mind, or they're so connected with it? What's the first step to sort of create a bit of space and to sort of observe and to slow down a bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So give us an example. What was a thought or a pattern that was going on for you here that was saying, and that made you go, wow, or this is me? Like what would it be in a sentence?
Yeah, so we're driving in the car to Nordstrom Rack to get some more earrings. We got some gorgeous earrings, people, over there. And but I had been inside, and I was trying to work out, the programs, etc., that I'm doing, and all the tech. and it just started getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And I just for a moment, I was thinking, there's no way I can do this. I can't work out this tech. How stupid am I that I can't work out this tech? I'm going to be overwhelmed for the rest of the year, for the rest of my life. I don't want to live this way. This is the
Yes,
thought.
it snowballs, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it was
It
snowball.
snowballs when you have that moment. And why that was so hard those few days when you're trying to work out the tech and you're doing a launch and you're this and that and it's new. And I was telling poor Amy, oh, just do this and this and this and this and this all in 6 weeks. And I was the one to, do this to, because I was giving you too many things and it could have been simpler. So but you're one good thing, actually, even we back, those kinds of thoughts were coming from a protective mechanism, right? Like, I don't know if I can do all of this. And sometimes that is good. Like, let's put the brakes on and see if there's an easier way. But when the brakes don't go on and go, well, let's see if there's an easier way, and it starts snowballing. And all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed with tech, like my whole entire life is just going to be one big overwhelm. Otherwise, I'm not going to be successful. That's where it goes.
Totally.
Then it's the mind playing. So let's choose, I'm going to have to work like a dog forever if this is going to work, or something like I'm going to have to work more than I want to get the success. Or I know artists, you could even just put in, I'm going to have to do things I don't want to do to be a success.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then we've got that thought. So one way to get some space in between it is ask yourself, am I aware of that thought? So are you aware of that thought?
Yes.
Right? We are, because we're commenting on it. And just that thought will feel different than being in the thought. Right? So anyone can say, am I aware of the thought, which puts you back into a witness position. And now you've got a witness watching the thought. The other way you can do, once you've got a little bit of space, is ask, is it true? And point that light and shine that on it. Is it true that you will have to work like a dog and be totally overwhelmed to get success? Is that absolutely true, Amy, Jack?
No, Rachael Jayne. No,
Right?
it's not. Yeah.
So now you've got even more space with that. You can do some somatic practices of breathing, of coming down into your vertical core and things like that. That's all great as well.
Yeah.
So most people who've been in our world for a while, the awakened school world, and have been doing things with me, they've known this for a while. And I'm sure many people watching this, that you can just go, oh, just watch your thoughts. Just don't touch them, watch them. But it's another thing to then do that in the moment that they are going. So it's very much a training. You have to train yourself like a good artist or a good athlete to do this. So there's a decision point in there. Do you actually want unshakable inner peace, or are you just talking about it? Right? Do you want it, or are you just talking about it? Just like you are with your artists. You want to be exceptional, or you just want to play around?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But it's really hard, Rach, because it's like 40 of my years I was in the full, and now I have to sort of pull myself out of that. And it's a different way of being in the world. Like you're right about in here, it's a totally different way of being in the world.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like, what choice do you have?
Yes, and it starts with sincere intention. Because like anything in an artist's career, you can't just go, this would be nice. It would be nice to quit my job and be an artist. It would be nice to get into a gallery. You have to have a sincere intention. You don't know where it's going to take you. You don't know how, but that's what I had before this book started coming through. I really had a sincere intention of dropping into this place where my mind was silent unless I wanted it. The suffering of that mental and emotional roller coaster was done. I knew intuitively it was through the spiritual awakening process. But people underestimate how much gets put into the universe, gets put into the psychology of the person intending when you say, I'm going for this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you know that, like when you sit down at different times in your career and go, okay, I don't know how, it scares the shit out of me. I just, what's next? But I'm intending this. And that happened right before this book came through. So for anyone listening that's like, oh, that sounds good, I would spend a good few weeks each night, each morning going, I'm at a place in my own personal and spiritual development that I want this relief. And if you don't, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you mentioned there and a little bit before about the body and the vertical core and that the mind and body is connected. So you also talk about in the book receptivity, and you talk about that a lot. And it's really interesting in the book how you're having a conversation with someone in the book and they say, hey lady, you're forgetting about this really important thing. You're missing this thing. And was receptivity and receiving. Could you just explain what that is, how you can do it and why it's important?
Yes, yes. So this might make some more sense to put it in the larger context of growth itself. So if we have in the beginning of our life, we're really trying to survive it. You only need to think back to your teenage years to be like, I was just freaking surviving. That we had some fun conversations about how we survived our teen years while I was a little, few years older and you were a few years younger. And we didn't realize what was going on with each other, right? Because we're growing up as teenagers and we had Bridget in the middle. So it was like, yeah, we're just trying to survive our life. So that's kind of where we start growing up, is we have to learn to survive. And then right at the other end of the awakening experience of or development experience on the personal and spiritual development is, I'm not trying to survive it because I am life. I am life itself. I'm not just interconnected with life. I am interconnectivity itself. That's what I am. That is what this awareness and presence and love streaming through me is. So that's on the other side. And we experience all the different places in the middle, right? As we are intuitively getting pulled to higher and higher dimensions of experience. So if you go from I am surviving life, what usually happens if you do stay on a personal growth path is you move to, now I'm going to find my life. Like I'm done with surviving it. And now who am I? And out I go. And like, what am I supposed to do? And so there's this finding, this searching experience, and that's higher and easier than surviving it. But then at some point, if you continue going, is I am finding it. Now I am creating it. Right? So we get from like, I'm trying to search for something, but now I'm going to create it. And you know that feeling, like I can create my own reality here. And that is a more robust feeling of being.
Yeah.
And that's where I was prior to this book. I had gotten out of this whole seeking and searching, and I was creating my book. I mean, creating my life, and I was creating miracles, and all sorts sort of great things were happening. But the idea of I am all of it and the trust in life and all of that, even though I did a little bit, it wasn't there. So how do I go from creating my life and being awesome in my life to I am life? And the book said the bridge is I am receiving life. So what does that mean? I'm receiving life. Well, receiving life means that I've got to be open to something larger. And I always think about the sun on a perfect temperature day, because I, like a lot of Aussie ladies, get cold easily, right? Especially living in Colorado now. So I think of the perfect temperature day, the sun's beaming, and I'm receiving that. It's like in my cells and in my veins. And when we do that, what happens when you just don't have to do or be anything? You're on the banana lounge. You got the thing draped over your face so the anti-aging is working, and you just like, you relax, you open, you feel levity, and that's because you are being. You don't have to do, try, and you are receiving. So all the frequency goes up. And to get from I create my life to a full let go, because you are life, you have to get receptive enough for that switch over to occur. Because you can't make that happen. You have to be receptive enough for it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I was teaching receptivity in Art of Feminine Presence for a long time. But the funny thing was, every time we'd have a retreat where I'd teach 22 practices of Art of Feminine Presence and now Art of Masculine Presence. And for those of you who don't know, it's the work that we did worldwide. For 13,000 or more people have now been through the training. I was teaching a practice called receptive body. But whenever we were getting to the last day, I was like, oh, that's the most boring one. Amara, who's my co-leader, can teach it on the Zoom next week. Like, it was like I was putting it down as like, oh, not that important. And the book was like, that is the most important practice of all for your mind to come into an unshakable inner peace. And so I won't go into it now because the book goes into it if you want to read it, but we can just go back to that banana lounge experience of like, your mind's not racing when you're like, oh, receptive to the sun. And so I've now trained myself like a great artist, a great athlete, to be highly receptive, whether I am stressed or in a place that could stress me, like I've got to speak to, 300 people and they don't know me. And now I'm speaking about kind of, esoteric. Some of them might say, out there conversations, but I'm receptive to the room. I'm receptive to the audience. Puts me straight in an unshakable place. It also puts me in a more magnetic place, which I think is important for the artist to know when they're communicating and when they're not to shut down and be like, and so the more and more receptive I came, the more everything just let go. Like I was just a few days after the book, I was on a different island in Hawaii, and my mind just went silent. It was so blissful, so incredible that I just didn't know what was really going on. And at the same time, this voice that helped me through the book was still talking to me and helping me process what was going on, and to be able to stay in that place, which I've had a few blips since then. Like, I mean, we went through a pandemic. So, we went through a lot of polarity, especially here in the US, right? This is the land of polarity. Everyone's at each other's throat in social media and, politics and all that all the time. And yeah, but there were just little things, such a different experience than before this book.
And so I know you do, meditation every morning. So you've got that set, and then you live in your life on Miracle Hill there, where you live, just like receptive all the time. And so I think you describe it really well with like the feeling of the warm sun on your body. But how do you stay receptive? And you talk about this in the book. How do you stay receptive when, like, if you have to give up, you have to stand up and give the speech, or an artist has to go into the gallery and introduce themselves, or they have to send a newsletter out for the first time, and what are you doing in the moment? What is happening in you in the moment?
There's a few things happening, and you can tackle it from a few different places. So if you wanted to tackle it from the mind perspective, like the mind was just going, oh, this is going to be terrible, or you're going to forget your words with this speech, or whatever, if that was going, you can ask, is that true? You can notice the witness, all of those things. But you could also tackle it from the somatic experience, the physical and energetic body, which is the vertical core and other things that we teach. Is what's happening in the body is you are either getting pulled up into your mental realm, your head bubble, or you are anchored into your body and your vertical core, which is where all the energy centers are superimposed on, the vertical channel, the cross section of your body. If those of you not sure what I mean, everyone's probably seen a yoga poster or something where someone's sitting and you see all the energy centers and the line down the middle and this bioenergetic field or aura or what have you. And so I've trained myself to come out of my head bubble, which we can just do right now and everybody can do so you can feel it, is I'll come out of my body. Like I'm not aware of my body. I'm just in mental thinking mode. If I'm in mental thinking mode, I can think about my to-do list. Everybody think about your to-do list now. All the things you need to do. Automatically, we're all anxious, whether the to-do list is good or not. So when we're out of our body, people don't realize, but that is creating anxiety. So as soon as I come up and out, even if I start talking to you about something I love, like, oh, hi, Amy, I'm so glad to be talking about this book today, Unshakeable Inner Peace. This has been my, most favorite project. Well, Casa Sagrada as well, as you know, and I start feeling anxious about what I'm saying because I'm outside my body. So what people can do is just come back and anchor in some part of their vertical core. Maybe their heart's the easier way, but it's not like I've got to think heartful thoughts. You've actually got to ground yourself and be in the internal space of your chest. So if I do that now and just feel more of my heart light, I'm going to start talking to you very differently than when I'm in my head bubble. I feel more relaxed. I feel more grounded. I can do that as well with my lower belly. That's where I trained first, is to really stay in my lower dantian, hara, donjon. There's all sorts of names for this center of your energetic field, a few inches below the navel, back toward the spine. Like when I am there, my mind stops. So I've tended to go more somatic and body training than mindset training, because if I can drop home, no matter how many people are there or what I've got to say, this body sends a signal to my brain that you got this. This is going to be great. You are powerful. And I'm not saying, I'm not getting my mantras out. You are powerful and saying it in the mirror, you can do this. It's a feeling and it's experience. And that's what we all want. We don't want to be saying mantras. We don't want to be saying affirmations. We want to feel like we're unshakable. And that comes through training the focus in the body, particularly your energy centers.
Yeah, it's training and practice and then trust, isn't it? And you walk us through that in the book, and it's so important for artists. We need to practice, but you need to then be able to let go and trust, which takes like time and practice. Yeah.
Well, trust Usually on a mind body standpoint, not on who you really are, which is not your Ursu. That trust comes from being witnessed. So what people tend to do is like, I should just trust. I should just trust. I should just be home and trust. And that is practically impossible. We all know, like we would have done it if it was that easy, right? But it's hard. And so we need someone else or a group to witness us when we are in that space and give us feedback. So in Art of Feminine Presence, which I know you've done many times, some people don't like, why are you getting people to meditate or get people to be internal and then someone else is watching them meditate, watching them in their practice with their eyes closed, and why are we doing that? Which out of context sounds a bit strange. It's because when we go into that powerful, unshakable place in that experience, the person who's in it, they know that they're in it in the moment. It feels amazing. Even if someone's looking at them, there's no self-consciousness. There's no performer consciousness, which is also like, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to show them how good I am. Nothing's there. It is full presence. But what happens when you open your eyes and you come out of that full presence is the mind doubts that just happened. It's like, oh, that was nothing. Oh, that was nothing. Even though you had a really powerful experience of presence and unshakable, and your mind went silent and you felt like you were as big as the universe, you come out and your mind goes, yeah, you made it up. They wouldn't have seen that. You had a little head thing, halfway through that, like all this crap. But when you have someone there witnessing, and I've had this for years on years on years, and they say, Rachael Jayne, you were so present. I felt you were as big as the universe, or you were so beautiful in the richness of blah, blah, blah. All sorts of things come out. I now I have to trust. Now I do trust, because it wasn't just me. Someone saw it. And that's why your work as artist mentor is so important, because no matter how good your clients are, and she told me about all of you while she was here, like just going how amazing their work is, and they don't get it. They don't get how amazing it is. That's you said that on almost everyone. And so you have to come in honestly and go, this is how amazing your work is. And that's what I've been doing with Amy, because Amy's work is amazing. And not only Amy's work is amazing, Amy's mentoring is amazing. Amy's coaching and holding of space is amazing. But you wouldn't know that as fast if I wasn't here to be able to say, yeah, you're way better than you think you are. And I'm not just trying to make you feel good, because I'm your sister, and sisters don't just try to make you feel good, So it's that loop of witness. So as quickly as you can get that, and that's why you've got to be in a community of people doing this work, because you can't rely on mostly family of origin or friends who are, especially in Oz, Britain, trying to kind of pull you down or think you're a little strange, or what do you think you're going to make any money from this? Like, what the hell's going on? When are you going to give it? I mean, we're all in different situations, right? You have to not listen to that. And you have to be around people who see you, get you, and are willing to tell the truth, not like, you're amazing at that, when you're not really. Like, there's skill involved, right? It's not just like think it and you'll be amazing. It's train and practice and all that. Anyhow, I'm going on a little too long about that.
Well, but no, I'm glad you said that, about the trust aspect is the witnessing and that community around that. And I had so many topics to cover, and we're sort of coming to the end of time, but there's so much specifically for artists in here. There's a chapter on unworthiness, of having the big vision, but then being unattached to that, and so much more. And Yeah, so I really recommend it, everyone. And not just because I'm your sister, I'm very unbiased, unbiased. But it's one that I've read quite a few times. I was lucky enough to read it as you were sort of getting it done. And I've got lots of underlined in here, and I go back to it a lot. So if you want to get a free e-copy, I'll have the link below, and that will be to the end of February. And thank you so much, Rach, for chatting with me and with my artist community and giving your time. And I know people who will get the book will be really intrigued by the story and have so much learning from it. So yeah, thank you so much. And
You're so
wonderful.
welcome.
Yeah.
You're so welcome. I just want to say, you know, artists, it's such an important role on this planet. Like, beauty and art and innovation is what stops people in their tracks. It makes people more present, right? You are doing spiritual work, in my opinion, helping people stop, be present, see something new, be in the unknown. And so keep doing your work, your inner work, as well as your work with Amy and all of that. It's so important. And if you get a copy of the book, read 2 chapters and you'll know if it's your cup of tea or not. It may not be your cup of tea, but you'll know early in, and enjoy.
Yeah, and you've got nothing to lose because it's a free copy straight to your computer or device. And, yeah, so thanks so much, Rach, and thanks everyone for listening to our conversation. If you've got any questions or comments, just let us know, and we'll see you soon. I hope to see you soon. Okay. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.